going on, guys? Byron from Train to Fight. The review that people have been waiting for. The Serpa BlackHawk holster. Okay. Obviously, I don't have my pad on yet. I haven't utilized this. But let's get us a firearm. Okay. See? Alrighty. Check clear. So, obviously, say, I remove the magazine. Get this off of here. It just came off the range a second ago. So, let's talk Serpa BlackHawk holster. Now, initially, when I first seen this holster, it was one of my favorites. I've actually ran the holster for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I really like the holster, originally. Just because I like the way that when you holster it, if it's on a pad or you have it on a belt, it sits up high on your waist. So you'll have it and it sits up high so you get a good grip. Now, one of the other things that I liked about the holster was the fact that if you need to, quick draw. You always had access to be able to just get the gun out and be able to be effective. Now, let's talk about a lot of the issues that people were having with this holster. Okay, one of the biggest issues that people were having with the holster was the way that you have to disengage the locking mechanism, utilizing your trigger finger. And I get it, because it can be sketchy, but utilizing your trigger finger to disengage the locking mechanism, I don't think is a deal breaker for the holster. Like I've said, I ran this holster for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, without incident or issue. That is something that can be corrected with training. Now, I know a lot of people say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You'll shoot yourself. Yes, there are tons of videos out of people shooting themselves. But once again, we don't know these people's backgrounds of how much they train. And a lot of times, people have been shooting for a while and utilize the holster for a while and they get complacent. You never get complacent, because when you get complacent, that's when accidents happen. So it could have been a situation like that, and that's what happened, and unfortunately some individuals shot themselves. Now, me personally, you could sit in the house with one of these holsters, make sure you have no ammunition around and you're able to draw. You can do some dry fire practice, but most importantly, you want to work on your draw. Anytime you switch holsters, you should not be wearing that holster outside unless you have put time in the house practicing your draw. If you can get a flawless draw every time in a calm situation, I would say out of 10 draws, you should be able to get it out every time. If you can't effectively get it out of the holster every time, a little more practice for you to actually wear it. Now, for the people that'll say, oh, you don't know, in a stressful situation. I've been in stressful situations utilizing one of these holsters. And I don't mean stressful situation where it was a heated argument. I mean a stressful situation where someone was shot. I effectively was able to remove the firearm from the holster and was ready to engage in no time. So that, like I said, is a training issue. In my opinion, you can get over that hump by training. Now, a lot of the law enforcement guys I know, this is one of the biggest problems and issues with this holster. And that, my friends, is this right here. Now, we can see this little gap right here in the holster. Okay, right up here. And right here as well. The problem with that being is, especially for all my law enforcement guys, my armed security professionals out here, if you're in a scuffle with somebody and it goes to the ground, which a lot of times these scuffles do, something can become lodged in here. And if you get something lodged in there, you will not be able to get your firearm out of this holster. Now, let's say you're in a scuffle, it goes to the ground. Now, this guy goes for a knife or a firearm, whatever the case may be. The last thing you want to happen is to have something lodged in here and you are unable to remove your firearm from the holster when you need it. If this happens at the wrong time, this can prove fatal. So, for my law enforcement guys, that's a major issue. The holster remains pretty popular, which is probably why Serpa BlackHawk hasn't addressed it or changed it. But it's a very popular holster because when you go to a gun store, you see tons of them. They have them for different makes and models of guns. And people say, hey, I don't want a level 1 holster where it could just be pulled out. I want some type of retention, and a lot of them don't want the little straps where you break it with your thumb and things of that nature. So this is always a go-to. So it's a very popular holster, and it sells a lot of these. They sell a lot of these every year, tons of them. So that's probably why this issue hasn't been addressed. But even in my combat pistol instructor class, we talked about it. Same thing. I mean, obviously we were outdoors, but if something gets lodged in here, man, that gun is out of the fight. And depending on your situation, you don't want your gun out of the fight at all. It does you no good if you have a holster that's jammed and now your firearm is out of the fight. That is no good. That can prove fatal in the wrong situation. So that's my biggest issue with this holster is this. Because if something becomes lodged in here and you can't get it out, that's an issue. Now, for some departments, I've seen some sheriff departments that are actually running the level 3 version of this holster. The level 3 version of this holster, it all sits higher. There's an actual hood on here. That hood has to be disengaged as well, so it'll flip off, and then you're able to still do your draw and get it out, okay? But sheriff's departments are usually indoors, so they don't run the risk as much as getting something logged in here, but it can still happen. But for officers that are outside in the streets, I highly recommend that you select another holster. Just because with this holster, like I said before, if something gets lodged in here, you're gonna have to most likely break your holster, and you don't want your gun out of the fight when you may need it. So another thing I want to point out with some of the holsters, a lot of the Safariland holsters that you probably seen on the market where it's like a strap and you flip the strap down to be able to get the firearm out. Those are actually pretty good, but you'll notice on a lot of those holsters you're able to take off the locking mechanism that keeps the firearm secured and clean it. With the Serpa BlackHawk version, you cannot do that. It's all one piece, so you can't take it out to make sure it's clean. So if you get some debris in here, one, it's going to disable you from being able to remove your firearm. So it's going to take your firearm out of the fight. But you don't want that problem. And if that happens, 9 times out of 10, you're going to break your holster and destroy it to get your firearm out. And you can't take this out and clean it. So that's another thing. So Serpa BlackHawk, one of those things that y'all should definitely look at is doing something about this. So nothing could get in there and prevent people from getting their firearm out, because like I said, it could prove fatal. So one of the things to think about, I know it's a very popular holster, but just be aware, because if you get in a fight and the fight goes to the ground, you get something in here, your gun will be out of the fight if something gets lodged in here. And I get it, you may be able to get it out, but when seconds count, you don't have that kind of time. Okay? So, thanks for watching, y'all. Leave your comments below. Any other gear you'd like me to review. As always, have fun. Shoot safe.